Hello, everyone. I'm Andy from ThinkMo. I'm teaching CCIE course now. Starting today, I will share with you some CCNA, CCNP, CCIE related technologies. Our topic today is how to detect IP address conflict between devices. This involves a concept called gratuitous ARP. First, we need to pass the following 3 questions. Let's explain what gratuitous ARP is. First of all, what is gratuitous ARP? The second, free ARP. In what scenario will it appear? What does the third, gratuitous ARP, do? In addition to detecting address conflicts, does it do anything else? We all know that for network devices, the IP address must be configured on the interface. Let's say we visit a remote host. This IP address, let's call it the source IP address. So this IP address on the far end, let's call it the destination IP address, indicates normal ARP packets procedure. The source is the IP address of the interface to the remote host. This IP address is the destination. The main thing it does is to request the IP address of the peer end, the MAC address of the interface to which it corresponds. The purpose of this is to implement packet encapsulation. It depends mainly on a representation of our device. This representation is called an ARP table. It's on our Windows host. It's also visible. You can open this command line. Is the CMD. It passes through the ARPA command line. You can view it. We see normal ARP appearances. It has an IP address before it. This is called the physical address. The physical address is the MAC address we just talked about. There's a correspondence between them. Every IP address, they all have the corresponding MAC address. This is what we're talking about. In general ARP packet, it has a role to play. Just to be local. Generate an ARP representation. The data is then encapsulated. And then the next generation. The packet is destined for the target IP address. So we can query ARP representation. Forward the data. So what is gratuitous ARP? Gratuitous ARP and free ARP. The difference is that it interfaces with itself. The IP address is the source with its own interface. IP address is the destination. Different from common ARP packets. Source and destination IP addresses. It's all its own. So each is a case of its own. What is this all about? We'll talk about that in a minute. Gratuitous ARP is just that. The source IP address is yourself. The destination IP address is yourself. A broadcast sent. Remember, it has to be broadcast ARP packets. So why radio? I don't need to go into too much detail about this. Just to get the word out to the whole network. And then the second aspect is the emergence of free apps. Like right now. An interface is closed. Then it opened again. As long as the interface is open. Once the IP address is configured, it's going to send a free ARP packet. That's the first case. And then you could have changed your network card. When you change your network card, that means the whole equipment changed. Changing a network card is the equivalent of close this interface. Re-enable the case. The second is us. The IP address of the interface was changed procedure. For example, the original is 192.168.1.1 and now the IP address of this interface, instead of 192.168.1.2 or other IP addresses, So in this case, free ARP is generated. There are many cases of this. In this case, it's just simple. Several examples are given. The third we're going to come to. Take a look at gratuitous ARP. What does it do? The first is for detecting address conflicts. So what is the second case used for? It is used for announcements. A new MAC address. So what's going on here? So based on detecting address conflicts and announcing the new MAC address, let's do a little bit more elaboration. It makes sense to detect address collisions first. For example, for a local area network class or the entire network, my two hosts, the same IP address is configured. At this point, an address conflict can occur. Then we can pass ARP message. Take yourself as the source. For their own purposes, send it to the network as a broadcast. The host may receive it. If the IP address is configured, it must be the same as the IP address of the interface. This will result in duplicate addresses. That is to say, the address conflict that we're talking about. In this case, ARP is sent. So the ARP, when I received it, I saw it was me. In this case, it's meant to give a reply. This will detect an address conflict. The second aspect, it's used to announce a new MAC. We've actually covered that before. These devices usually there is an appearance of ARP. The representation of ARP is the IP address, specifies the MAC address of the interface. It's usually a mapping representation like this, used for encapsulation of data or data forwarding. For whatever purpose, you need to have an image of that. So it and the announcement knew. What does a MAC address matter? When my network card was replaced, at this point its MAC address will also change. Because we all know that every NIC its MAC addresses are all different. That's the MAC address. It is the unique ID of the network card. You can think of it this way. In this case, after replacing the network adapter, in order for other host devices, updating ARP representation, then I should indicates a gratuitous ARP packet before sending a free ARP packet. Arrived procedure. In my network, other topics have been received. It also refreshes its ARP representation. And then it will be at aging time. Notify all other hosts. Send room at this time. You can send one free ARP to notify. That's all for today. If there are any other skills you would like to learn, feel free to leave a comment or send me a private message. If you're interested in what I'm talking about, hope to like and subscribe more. See you next time.